Barry likes a sausage every day. Is that milk in the fridge going to last 14 days? How many ones and twos can that toilet actually cope with? Where are you going to be putting all the clothes for 2 weeks? You could be paying thousands extra for something you don't actually need. And this is where I think people start making expensive mistakes. Everyone seems to be selling campervans that last 10, 14, even more days off grid. But I think the whole conversation is focused on the wrong thing. Because for most people, it isn't the battery that ends the trip. It's something completely different. Let's talk about it. Now, as far as the current campervan market's concerned, there are some absolutely phenomenal builds out there. You know, a lot of campervans now have got inverters, they've got air fryers, some of them even have inbuilt coffee machines, which is something I plan on doing on my van. But they're a lot more capable than they used to be. Now, don't misunderstand me here. Modern electrical systems are absolutely fantastic. The solar panels now are incredible. Lithium batteries, brilliant. The technology's improved so much. DC to DC charging or alternator charging is much faster than it used to be. I'm not saying don't buy a good electrical system. I'm saying that for most people, that isn't the limiting factor for the trips. But this is where some of the problems come from. Some of these converters are essentially marketing these vans as being essentially off grid for 10 days, 14 days. You know, you can go off grid for a long period of time indefinitely. People are being talked out of buying what might actually be a better van for them for the wrong reasons. And there's another reason the electrical system isn't usually the limiting factor. You're putting energy back into the battery whenever you drive. This van, for example, has a charger that can put around 1,000 watts an hour back into the battery. So even a short drive can actually top up your leisure battery really, really quickly. You know, it is 1,000 watt hour charger. So basically you're putting 1,000 watts in your battery every hour, you know, so it's topping it up really, really quickly. The technologies are there to be getting that power really, really fast back into it. You know, somebody, said to me, it's a bit like thinking about a bucket. So you've got your bucket, you've got all your power devices, which are draining this bucket out, your induction hob, your coffee machines, just your fridge, your freezers, microwaves, whatever it could be. That's draining that bucket, but it's how quick you can get that energy back in to top it up. And that's where the solar panels and the DC to DC chargers, the alternator chargers, that's where all they come in to get that bucket topped back up again. And so what I'm saying to you here is the electrical system isn't necessarily the problem, but yet that's what's being sold to people as being the off-grid. This is your answer to off-grid. Well, that wasn't the problem in the first place. The problems are actually something else. But the first one is water. You know, how big is the water tank on that van which you're thinking about buying? You know, if we're looking at a transporter size such as this, you know, what kind of tank has it got? You know, they do vary, really, really do drastically. You know, is it 20 litre tank? Is it a 35 litre tank? Is it 50 litre tank? You're probably not going to be getting much more than that in a camper van of this size. Go underslung, you might get a bit more. But again, how fast are you actually depleting that water? How often are you using the sink? How often are you taking water out of the system to be having a drink? You know, how often are you going to be having showers? That, let's say, 50 litre tank, that's not really an awful lot of water to be lasting for 14 days. If you've been sold a van that can do 14 days off grid, can you go 14 days with only 50 litres of water? Perhaps not. So the second one, and that is food storage. Most fridges which you get in a camper van are about 50 litres. 50 litre fridge for storing fresh food. Think about your shopping at home. You go shopping, let's say you do a big shop, that big shop once a week. You've got quite a big fridge at home and you fill it up. That's why you go once a week, because your capacity isn't there to be doing it all the time, and obviously things go off. So if things go off anyway, you know, you buy a pint of milk or 4 pints of milk, unless you're using long life, how long is that going to last? Is that milk going to last 14 days? Is the fridge, is the fruit and veg and things like that which you bought going to last in the fridge, even if you can fit them all in, for 14 days? No, it isn't. Where are you going to be storing all your tinned items and your packets and things like that? You've only got a limited amount of places where you can be putting things like that. So as far as food's concerned, fresh food especially, what are you going to do with it? 14 days off grid without access to anything. 14 days of fresh food. It's not going to happen. So where is your fresh food going to come from? So if you did decide to cram all your units with packet foods and things like that so you can have some nice nutritious-ish meals, what are you going to do with clothes? You know, hiking boots, walking boots, swimming stuff, towels, dry robes. You know, we live in the UK. One minute it can be sunny in the morning and the next it can be chucking down in the evening. So you've got to pack appropriately to an extent. A lot can happen in 14 days. So you're going to have to take quite a lot of things. 14 days off grid, that's going to be quite a lot of clothes, quite a lot of shoes, quite a lot of things to be taken with you. Not really sure where you're going to be storing all that. So the camper van with the trick electrical system and all the bells and whistles of everything else, which might be pretty cool. Are they including extra storage? Is there some roof bars on the roof? Is there boxes? Is there some storage capacity which you can be using up there? Is there anything on the tailgate? Is there a tow bar with a trunk on the back so you can be storing extra things in there? You know, these are all things which you're going to be needing to think about. 14 days off grid. It's a lot of kit, it's a lot of gear. And that's before you get into other things like pots, pans and plates. You know, storing your air fryers, you know, microwaves if it's not built in, your kettles. You know, for 14 days, you're taking a lot of things with you. You know, maybe you are going to be taking paddle boards and things like that. Maybe you're taking your awning. You've got chairs and tables. You know, 14 days for going somewhere. What are you going to be doing for those 14 days? Other things that need to be thought about when you're thinking it through. But one of the big ones, one of the things that people do not speak about when you're talking about things like this, because not even all camper vans include them, but that's a toilet. Now, when you are going on your travels, when you are going places, if you are going off grid, then you're going to be needing a toilet, unless you're taking a spade and you're digging holes and doing stuff like that, which some people do. But for a lot of people, they'll be taking a chemical toilet, which is sold in these particular types of vans, which we're talking about, the transporter type vans, the transits, the Renault Trafics, and things like that. It's generally a small, compact chemical toilet that people are being provided with if you get one. So how many ones and twos can that cope with? How much waste can that actually hold before it's got to be emptied? And then where are you going to empty it? Properly, not just dumping it in a field or chucking it into a river, which obviously, you know, you shouldn't be doing. You know, you need a local Elson point. You need somewhere properly where you can actually do it, you can actually get rid of it. So that's not off grid, because you're going to be back on grid. You're going to be driving, charging the battery to actually do all these things. Notice something? None of those problems are electrical. And that's exactly my point. And this is where I think people start making expensive mistakes. Let me give you an example. I actually know people, like real people, real events that have actually happened, who've said, no, I don't want to buy that van because it's not off-grid capable. Because it can't do more than 7 days off grid, or more than 10 days off grid, or more than 2 or 3 days off grid, or whatever it is. Okay, well, that's a shame, because that van's actually quite a nice van. So tell me about what you're actually doing. Where are you going to be staying? Are you staying somewhere for 14 nights and never moving? Oh, no, we're staying at one location for one night, and then we'll get in the vehicle, and then we'll drive off again to the next place. All right, okay, so you're driving, so you're topping up the battery, so you might have depleted it a little bit, but you're going to top it up. All right, okay, that's okay. And where are you going to be staying? Oh, you're staying on campsites, right? So you've actually got electrical hookup then, so you don't really need to be off grid at all. No, well, we might go off grid. You might, but is it likely? Well, yeah, we might do, but it might only be like for one night or something. Okay, well, most vans these days are more than capable of doing one night off grid. What about like your shopping and things like that? Oh yeah, we'll be going shopping every day. Oh yeah, Barry likes to have his nice fresh piece of fish every day. All right, okay, so you're going to go to the fishmongers or the supermarket. Again, you're going to be driving, so you're going to be charging the battery again. So you don't need that massive electrical system, which is the only reason why you want to go for that van. So what about like the toilet? You know, what are you going to do for the toilet? Oh no, I wouldn't poo in a bucket. Right, okay, so you're only going to be staying on campsites, and the campsites are obviously, again, going to have hookup. So you don't need the electrical system. You don't need that really expensive van with electrical system, which is completely insane and blooming brilliant, but actually you don't need it, and you're paying over the top. And there's actually a better van there, which you actually prefer the look of, you actually prefer the way the pop-top works, you actually prefer how nice the lighting is in the van, you actually prefer the layout in it. But because it's not got that real trick electrical system, which you don't need, you're not going to buy it. Doesn't make any sense, does it? And this is the problem. This is the very problem with the way things are being marketed. And people just need to think about how the vans are going to be utilised. How are you going to use that van? You need to match your needs with what the van has. You know, you might need the power for your air fryer and your induction hob and your coffee machine. That's fine. Make sure you've got that inverter. But what I'm saying is you don't need to be spending that extra £1,000, £2,000 on the bigger batteries when actually an exercise battery, and okay, a Y-size battery would be more than capable for you. You know, it's thinking about it. It's having that consultative conversation with the campervan dealer, the campervan seller, the campervan manufacturer, to make sure that your needs are understood and you know what exactly it is you're buying. Buy what suits you. There's no point buying something which is going to be off-grid for 14 days electrical wise when you can't even go 2 or 3 days off-grid for how you want to use the van. So 14 days off-grid in a camper van of this size, it'd be brimming hard. So before you spend another 2, 3, maybe £5,000 extra on that electrical system, ask yourself one simple question. How am I actually going to be using this campervan? Because the best campervan isn't necessarily the one with the biggest battery. It's the one that's right for the way you travel. What do you think about when off-grid is mentioned? Is it the storage? Is it the battery? Would it be the water? Maybe the food? Or where you're going to store all those clothes? Or maybe there's something else which you think about that I've missed. Do let me know in the comments. And I showed me living off-grid, albeit partially, for 5 days at the Dubbed Out Festival. And you can see that video here. Thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you soon.